The tire blowout sounded like a gunshot, echoing across the scorching Arizona highway. 12-year-old Leo froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. The temperature was already climbing past 100 degrees, but a cold shiver ran down his spine. In his sweaty hand, he gripped a crumpled piece of paper so tight his knuckles turned white. It was an appointment letter for the Maricopa County Family Court. 10 a.m. He had exactly 30 minutes to run 2 miles. This was it. After 4 years of sleeping under overpasses and eating out of dumpsters, this was his one shot at a real bed, a real home, a real life. If he were late, the system would wash its hands of him. He would be invisible again. Then, the scream tore through the air. Through the settling dust of the crash, Leo saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, lying motionless on the burning asphalt. Debris from the exploded tire was scattered everywhere. Blood was pooling fast beneath her head, dark and terrifying against the gray road. Leo looked at the courthouse tower in the distance. It was freedom. It was safety. Then he looked at the girl. She was dying. Every survival instinct he had learned on the streets screamed at him to keep running. Don't get involved. Don't stop. Save yourself. But then, a memory surfaced. His mother's voice, clear as day. Save who you can, Leo. Always. Leo looked at the clock. Then he dropped his backpack. The adoption paper fluttered into the dust. He sprinted toward the wreckage, knowing with absolute certainty that he had just thrown away his only chance at a family. If you believe that a single moment of courage can rewrite destiny, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next will prove that sometimes you have to lose everything to find exactly where you belong. Leo's hands didn't shake. They never did when there was blood involved. That was the only gift his mother had left him. She hadn't been just a mother. Sarah was a combat medic with the 101st Airborne. She had survived tours in Afghanistan, stitching up soldiers while mortars rained down. But she couldn't survive the war she brought home in her head. The PTSD took her piece by piece until, 2 years ago, it took her completely. She didn't leave Leo with money or a house. She left him with a worn-out, coffee-stained field manual. Tactical Combat Casualty Care. For the last 2 years, Leo had survived in The Zone, the sprawling homeless encampment in downtown Phoenix. It was a place where hope went to die, where adults looked through you like you were a ghost. But Leo was different. While other kids learned to steal, Leo studied that manual. He practiced bandaging on stray dogs. He memorized pressure points instead of nursery rhymes. It was his way of keeping his mom alive. But no manual could fix the loneliness. The nights were the hardest. Lying on a piece of cardboard behind a Circle K, listening to the coyotes howl in the distance, Leo would close his eyes and imagine a different life. A life with a front door. A life with a refrigerator that had food in it. A life where someone asked, "How was your day?" That morning, the appointment at the courthouse wasn't just a meeting. It was his exit strategy. A social worker had finally found a foster family willing to take a chance on an older, difficult placement. All he had to do was show up. He had to look presentable. He had to be on time. Now, kneeling on the burning asphalt, Leo knew that the dream was turning to ash. But as he looked at the little girl's pale face, he knew something else too. If he left, she wouldn't make it. "Stay with me," Leo whispered, his voice cracking with the dryness of the desert air. The gash on the girl's neck was deep. A piece of jagged metal from the rim had grazed the carotid area. It was bad. He didn't have a med kit. He had dirty hands and a sweaty t-shirt. He balled the fabric up, pressing it directly into the wound, leaning his entire frantic 80-pound body weight onto her neck. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, he counted, just like his mom taught him. The bleeding slowed. Then, the ground started to shake. It wasn't an aftershock. It was a roar, a low, guttural thunder that vibrated through the soles of his sneakers. He looked up to see a wall of chrome and black leather descending on the scene. The Road King's MC. They didn't park. They swarmed. Engines cut, and boots hit the pavement. Leading them was a man who looked like he was carved out of granite. Jackson Jax Miller, the president. He was 6'4", covered in tattoos, with a beard that hid most of his face, and his eyes were wide with pure, unadulterated terror. "Lily!" Jack screamed, his voice raw. He sprinted toward them, seeing only his daughter covered in blood and a dirty street kid pressing down on her throat. Instinct took over. Jax lunged, grabbing Leo by the back of his shirt. "Get your hands off her!" Jax roared, ready to throw the boy aside. "Don't move her!" Leo screamed back. The authority in his voice was so sharp, so professional, that it froze the giant biker in his tracks. "She has an arterial bleed! If I let go, she bleeds out in 2 minutes! Call 911! Jax stared. The other bikers stared. For a second. The only sound was the hissing of the radiator. Sirens wailed in the distance. The spell broke. Paramedics rushed in, pushing everyone back. A medic took over Leo's position, looking at the makeshift tourniquet and nodding at the boy. "Good job, kid. You bought her time." But Leo didn't hear the praise. He saw the police cruiser pulling up behind the ambulance. Panic, cold and irrational, flooded his chest. He was a truant. He was late for court. If the cops grabbed him, they'd put him in juvenile hall. He'd never get adopted. While Jax was climbing into the ambulance with Lily, Leo grabbed his empty backpack. He didn't wait for a thank you. He ducked under the yellow tape, scrambled down the embankment into the dry riverbed, and vanished into the heat waves. 3 hours later, at Phoenix General Hospital, the surgeon walked into the waiting room. Jax stood up, flanked by 10 of his Road King's brothers. The room felt small. "She's stable," the doctor said. The collective exhale in the room sounded like a gust of wind. "But Jackson, you need to know something. The pressure applied to her neck. It was perfect. Whoever did that understood anatomy. They saved her life before the ambulance even got there." Jax nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He remembered the boy. The fear in the kid's eyes, but the steady hands. And he remembered how he had almost thrown the savior of his daughter onto the pavement. He walked out of the hospital and lit a cigarette, his hands trembling for the first time in 20 years. He pulled a grainy still image from a dashcam video one of the prospects had recovered. It showed a skinny kid in oversized clothes sprinting away from the scene. "Listen up," Jax barked. The Road Kings snapped to attention. "This kid is out there. He's scared, he's alone, and he's the reason Lily is breathing. I want him found. Turn over every rock in Phoenix. Check the shelters, check the bridges, check the zone. Nobody sleeps until we find him." The Road Kings didn't just ride motorcycles. They were the eyes and ears of the streets. They rolled out in a grid pattern. The first lead came from a pawn shop owner on Van Buren Street. "Yeah, I know him. Leo. Tried to pawn a silver locket once. Said it was his mom's. I wouldn't take it. Kid reads medical books behind the dumpster." The second lead broke Jax's heart. A social worker at the Maricopa County office, intimidated by 3 bikers in her lobby, checked her files. "Leo, yes. We had a placement hearing for him this morning at 10 a.m., a family from Tucson. He never showed up. The judge dismissed the case. He's been marked as non-compliant. He's back in the system." Jax looked at the clock on the wall. The accident happened at 9:35. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The kid wasn't running from the cops. He was running to a family, and he stopped. He stopped for Lily. He gave up his life for mine, Jax whispered. He crushed the cigarette under his boot. Mount up. We're going to find our boy. Leo was sitting on a rusted swing in a desolate park on the edge of town. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. He had torn the court appointment letter into tiny pieces, watching the wind carry them away. It was over. No family, no future, just him and the manual. Then he felt the vibration. It started low and grew until the chains of the swing set were rattling. Leo looked up. They were coming from everywhere. Motorcycles jumped the curb, riding across the grass. 10, 20, maybe 50 of them. They formed a tight circle around the swing set, engines idling with a menacing low rumble. The headlights cut through the twilight, blinding him. Leo curled into a ball, covering his head. He thought they were the police. Or worse, a gang coming to hurt him for messing up at the accident scene. One engine cut. Then another. Then 50 engines went silent at once. Heavy boots crunched on the gravel. Leo peeked through his fingers to see the giant man from the highway walking toward him. Jax looked terrifying. Dusty, imposing, a living mountain. Leo flinched when Jax reached out a hand. "I'm sorry," Leo cried out, his voice small and broken. "I didn't mean to run. I had an appointment. I'm sorry." Jax stopped. He didn't grab the boy. He slowly went down on one knee. The scary biker leader lowered himself until he was looking up at the terrified child. "You're apologizing?" Jax's voice was thick, choked with emotion. "Kid, you traded your future to save my daughter. You missed your meeting to save a stranger." Jax slowly took off his leather cut, the vest with the president patch on the back. It was sacred to a biker. He wrapped the heavy, warm leather around Leo's shivering shoulders. It smelled like gasoline and tobacco and safety. "You lost your shot at that family, Leo," Jax said, wiping a tear from his own dirty cheek. "But that's okay, because you've got a new one now. You saved the Road King's family. Now, we are yours." The transition wasn't seamless. You don't undo years of street trauma in a day. Leo moved into the clubhouse compound. For the first week, he slept with a steak knife under his pillow. He flinched when doors slammed. He hoarded bread rolls in his pockets. But the Road Kings, these men who the world saw as outlaws, became the gentlest nurses. Big Dave, the sergeant-at-arms, spent 3 hours fixing a bicycle for Leo. Tiny, a 300-pound mechanic, sat at the kitchen table helping Leo with his math homework, using spark plugs to teach fractions. Jax made a rule. No loud partying while the kid is studying. The clubhouse, usually a chaotic bar, turned into the quietest library in Arizona. One evening, Jax walked into Leo's room. He saw the corner of the steak knife poking out from under the pillow. He didn't get mad. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled a package from behind his back. "You don't need the knife, Leo," Jax said softly. "You got 50 uncles outside who would die before they let anyone hurt you." He handed Leo the package. It was a brand new, leather-bound copy of Gray's Anatomy. "My weapons are my fists. Yours is this. You're going to be a healer, Leo. The best this world has ever seen." Leo handed over the knife. He opened the book. For the first time in his life, he didn't check the exit when he walked into a room. He was home. 6 months later, the Maricopa family court was in session. The judge, an elderly woman with stern glasses, looked over her bench. "We are here for the adoption of Leo. Miller?" She paused, looking at the paperwork. "Is the petitioner present?" "Yes, Your Honor," Jax said, standing up. He was wearing a suit. It didn't fit well over his muscles, but he wore a tie. "Mr. Miller," the judge sighed. "Your background check is colorful. You are the president of a motorcycle club. You live in a compound. Who exactly will be supporting this child? Who stands for him?" Jack smiled. He turned and nodded at the double doors. The doors swung open. 50 members of the Road Kings marched in. They filled the benches. They lined the walls. They stood in the back. Silent, respectful, a sea of leather and loyalty. "We do." "Your Honor?" 50 deep voices rumbled in unison. The judge looked at Leo. "And what do you say, young man?" Leo looked at Jax, then at the brothers who had fixed his bike and helped him with homework. He looked at Lily, fully recovered, waving at him from the front row. "I say I'm exactly where I belong," Leo said. 15 years later. The sun shone bright on the graduation stage of Johns Hopkins Medical School when the name Dr. Leo Miller was called. The applause didn't just come from the audience. It sounded like thunder. Outside, a line of motorcycles stretched for blocks. Jax, now gray-haired and moving a bit slower, hugged the young man in the white coat. "Your mom would be proud," Jax whispered. "I know," Leo smiled, touching the stethoscope around his neck. "She told me to save who I can." Leo returned to Phoenix. He didn't work in a fancy private hospital. He opened a free clinic right in the heart of the Zone. The sign out front didn't just list the hours. It read, "Miller and Road Kings Community Clinic. A leather vest doesn't make a man dangerous, and a torn backpack doesn't make a boy worthless. Sometimes, the heroes we need are the ones the world refuses to see." If Leo's story reminded you that kindness is the strongest weapon we have, smash that like button. And do me a favor, share this video. Let's prove that in a world full of noise, a good heart still echoes the loudest. Save who you can. Thanks for watching.